That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes. Isn't sunshine and rainbows, and isn't, everyone sees you doing so well.
For just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
So, welcome to the dungeon. How you doing, mate?
Hello, Gary. It's about time you got me in the dungeon.
Oh, look, I've been chasing you for, what is it, 2.5, almost 3 years.
You have, and I've rejected you a couple of times. I'm just trying to treat you mean and keep you keen.
Well, I feel rejected, mate. I feel very rejected. I'm going to have a little sook in the corner of the dungeon here, which is what the dungeon's for.
Well, I'm sort of looking at your dungeon now, and it's quite inviting.
Look, I've got the fire hot. I've loosened the chains off a bit, and
So, should I now say that my kinks are that I like to be spanked with a double plugger thong, and my safe word is pineapple?
Now, hang on a minute. That safe word conjures up all sorts of dangerous things.
Well, I'm in your dungeon, and you're in my man room. So this is where men can be men. I can just watch the footy. I don't need to watch the wives. Farmer Wants a Wife or Master Chef, absolute garbage on TV. I can hang out in here. I can do whatever I want. I can make a mess. I can do all sorts of. There are no rules in man room.
Well, see, my dungeon's equal opportunity. So I've had a few women in here, and I've got to make sure they feel really comfortable because I don't want it to be too scary.
No, true. I like an equal opportunity dungeon.
Yeah, so we've got very bright colours behind me, and they help to absorb the sound so that it sounds really mellow and sexy, but at the same time, really,
as far as a dungeon goes, you definitely need a dungeon decorator to sort out your background, mate. I just got to say that.
Well, look, at the moment, I'm going with it because I think what I'm rolling with just gives people that mixed message, and hopefully it works.
There is a bit of a mixed message definitely going on there. So I'm going to use my safe word pineapple at any minute.
Okay. Well, the moment you do, the chains get tightened, mate.
Stop it.
So I'm drinking out of a Walker mug, and I'm drinking some hot chocolate.
I'm drinking out of a thermo mug as well, but I'm not drinking hot chocolate. So you're in man room, and you're 3 beers deep. Hang on, I've got to clear my throat. It's dry as here. Oh, my God, that's fantastic. All right, now I can talk. Now I can put on my radio voice. Is that better? Did you notice the tone?
Yep. Yeah, mate. That's it's perfect.
And I don't even have a fancy microphone. Look at the size of your microphone.
They tell me this microphone is stolen out of Alan Jones' studio.
Mate, I tell you what, there is a bit of a complex going on with the size of my microphone and with the size of your microphone.
Well, I made sure it's very prominent today so that I get that little bit of extra.
It's like scaring me a bit.
Yeah, that's it. I'm quaking in my boots, mate.
Yeah, but look, no, I'm glad to be in the dungeon, mate, and it's been a long time coming. And I tune in to your podcast every now and again when I think about it. Yeah. And I like what you do.
Thanks. Well, Greg Anderson, this is your life.
Don't you have a folder and you're meant to be wearing a suit and I'm on a couch?
No, I think I need the drums.
Okay.
Let's see if I can. There we go.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow, it's pretty high-tech stuff there.
So, Greg, with every episode that I do, and I just mentioned to you before we started recording, we're breaking this one into different segments, and that way people can tune in and tune out according to the type of topics they like talking to.
Yes.
But we're going to keep you in the dungeon until we drag every topic possible out of you.
Ooh.
So let's start with the history, because I know you've got a deep and long history. So if we wind the clock back, talk about your career before you decided lawn mowing was a good thing.
Well, look, I can't say I've decided that mowing was ever a good thing. So let's just start with that first of all. But yeah,
Yep.
look, I left school in year 10. I
1978. No.
don't even know. Like TVs were still black and white and stuff. No, look, I think I left school in 1988.
Yeah,
That
okay.
sort of rings a bell. I was born in 73. I'm 51 now, so
So
I think I left school in 1988. I think.
so you're of similar age to my wife, and I tell people I was in primary school when you finished school.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
yeah, year 10. I come from a place called Blacktown in Western Sydney, which I actually still live here through just being at the time the only affordable place to buy a house.
And it's probably not affordable anymore, right?
Oh, dude, it's not. Like I always say that I could not afford to buy the house again that I'm in now. If I
Yeah.
was buying a house tomorrow, I couldn't afford to buy this house.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I paid 380,000 for my house 20 years ago, and that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I was in over my head, and I didn't know how I was going to pay it off. Mate, my house is worth over $1 million now. But,
Yep.
People go, wow, $1 million. $1 million now is nothing, man. You need $2 million to buy a house. And
Yeah.
I don't know how average people, and I consider me an average person, how would you buy a house in these days unless you're on $500,000? I don't
Look,
know how people do it.
I said this to somebody recently. I said millionaires were valuable back in the 1920s. That's 100 years ago.
Yeah,
And
mate.
for some reason, they were still valuable in the 1980s. So
Yeah,
it spanned a massive distance. That's
it
60,
did. It did.
60 70 years.
And now to be a millionaire, it still sounds amazing, but it's just not because it's just
Look,
common now, isn't it? Like it's.
what would have been a millionaire in the 1920s would now be a billionaire, right? So the
Oh,
billionaires floating around
absolutely.
now, that's what they were dealing with.
You
Yep.
know, once upon a time, would say that you can't go anywhere without spending $20. Now you can't go anywhere without spending $100.
Yeah.
It's crazy,
Yep.
But yeah, look, getting back to me leaving school. So I left school. I had no idea what I wanted to do, as most kids don't. And my kids are going through that now. My kids are of the age of 16 and 18, and they're about to leave school as well. And I left school and I accidentally got an apprenticeship as a plumber. And
Okay.
yeah, it was great. I was working in Castle Hill. If people know the area in New South Wales, there's a huge retirement home. It's called Mole Village, and it's like yeah, I know, crazy name,
Yep.
but it's the size of a suburb. It's massive, massive. And my boss had the contract for all the plumbing maintenance on this place and all of its satellite retirement villages as well. And it was
Nice.
it was huge. It was
Very,
huge.
very lucrative contract.
Oh, very lucrative contract. It was a license to print money.
Yeah.
And so I trained as a maintenance plumber, solving problems and whatever. And we also done a bit of construction work there as well. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Nice.
so I done that for 6 years, and as I become a tradesman, my boss died. My boss died of leukemia.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was crazy. It was crazy. So my boss died of leukemia. His son took over the business. His son was a busted ass. His son destroyed the business in a matter of 6 months, and we're all out of work. So then I've gone to, and at the time, again, it was the recession. If you think back to when Keating was the prime minister,
The
and
recession we had to have.
it was that's exactly right. It was the recession we had to have. And
Yeah.
I went and worked for 4 or 5 other plumbers, but there was just no work. Nobody was building houses. No, there was no work. No one had any money.
So when
And
we talk about interest rates at the moment, sorry, this is a
yeah,
deep
yeah,
dive off the wrong end, but we'll come back to your story. Interest rates at the moment seem like they're crazy, really crazy, right? But 17%, 18% back then?
yeah, mate. It was that's yeah. I know. It's like we're in nothing. Where people complain about the interest rates now, man. Like, and we're a bit older, and we sort of know
Yeah.
what sort of bad really is.
Yeah. Well, we can see, like, I'm getting grey in my beard, and you're getting mostly white in yours.
I, I call it silver fox, Gary. It's silver fox. Ladies love
I'm not quite the silver fox. I've just got the silver lining.
it. You'll be there, mate. Another couple of years, you won't even know what colour your hair is.
Yeah, that's it.
But so that's it. So then I tried to start up my own. So I'm at the age, I think I was 22, 23. At that age, I tried to do a bit of handyman work. I
Yeah.
actually dabbled in starting my own business then at 23. It was called Grander Handyman. It was Greg and Amanda. I made the name Grander and I registered my first ABN.
There you
And
go.
that just never worked because nobody had any money. No one. So we're in the recession. So I had to work. And my cousin, who at the time worked for Comet Quickers Air, if you think back to the old ads, it was absolutely positively overnight. They had this big, it was an Australian-wide courier company. So I was
Yep.
working on the docks there, loading trucks,
Yeah.
driving forklifts. So I've always had a forklift ticket because of my father. So
Yeah.
I was driving forklifts there. And then they got me my first truck license, which was the little light, rigid truck license. And then I
Yep.
was a courier driving one of them little milk trucks around. And from there, I progressed to semi trailers. And I
Yeah.
wanted to drive trailers there, and they said, "Oh, you've got a lineup. You've got to wait for someone to die before you can get a job." So I left that, and I went and drove for a garbage company, driving tippers and mud carters and like the big construction bins and that sort of thing. I'd done that for 5 or 6 years. That's where I really learned how to drive a truck because they were all pieces of shit. None of them had a speedo. There was no seat belts. This is all before safety. Like this,
Yeah.
you think back to your early years. We're in our age group, Generation X. I don't know if you're part of Generation X, are you, or
Yeah.
you're the?
Yeah, pretty much.
So we were the transition of the
Yes.
old school and the new school. We are before internet.
Well,
So
the other thing you said that stands out to me there, and back in the time when you were truck driving and I was finishing school,
yeah.
when you had a job, it was like you said, you got a job and if it was a good job like the truck drivers, you had to wait for them to die to
Oh,
get a job.
absolutely. Yeah.
Because
Oh, no, absolutely.
coming out of the recession, people were wanting to hang on to their job. It was
Yeah,
security.
and it was that time, mate. It was very hard, and I was very fortunate to be in this good job at the time with Comet. I worked there for 5 or 6 years, and that's where I accidentally fell into being a truck driver. I thought I was going to be a bloody plumber the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I really did. And so then I was driving garbage trucks. I was driving tankers. I was doing a bit of dangerous goods work there. I
Nice.
was working with cranes and high abs. I learned a lot of skills there at
Yeah.
a very shonky operation. There was no safety at this company. It was if you could get in the truck and push the pedal, you got the job.
Yeah,
It was
don't let work health and safety get in the road
no,
of
there was none of that, mate. There was not. It was just let's just make it happen. I don't care how you make it happen. Let's just make it
what's
happen.
the saying? Get the job done and don't let anything get in the road.
That it was like that, mate. It was like that. It was crazy. I think about some of the things, some of the near misses that I had back in them days, just through their negligence trying to protect me or give me good things to work with, you know. But
This
look,
is back in the day when construction in Sydney was starting to get a lot more high-rise buildings, and you'd see those pictures of people on the high-rise buildings and construction.
yes, yes. So a quick story about that. So where I was I used to drive my trailer into the CBD, and they would load in the big multi-story buildings. They would load all their smaller mini skips in to me via their big crane they've got on top of the roof. And
Yep.
there was one guy that stood out, one of the dogmen, right? He was an old guy at the time, and he was one of the last guys to ride the hook. Ride the hook in the old days when the dogman would ride the hook, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean. So
Yeah.
he was an old guy, and so
Yep.
we're in the transition, you know. I sort of done that. I got out of that because I just hated it. It was good money. I was 23, 24. I was making a ton of money,
Yeah.
tons of overtime. I was still at home with mum and dad. I didn't have a girlfriend. I brought a brand new Toyota Land Cruiser when I was 24, just because it was just working out that way.
And this would have been back in the day when if you could take home $1,000 a week, you were making good money, right?
Oh, dude, I was taking home way more than that, man.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's true. And I've been fortunate all of my life. And my father laughs at me. He says, mate, you always seem to land on your feet for some reason. And it's just, I don't know, it's a bit of good luck, a bit of my own nous, a bit of everything. But I just seem to fall into good jobs.
Yeah.
Somehow, I don't know how I do, but it was a very good job back in them days when I was 23, 24, man. I was making a bomb of money. So, so then from there, I went and made, I totally done something different, and I worked with my father for a couple of years making glue. My father was a manager of this big factory, NB Love it was called, part of Western Milling, and they made glue there.
Yeah.
And he was paying me good, good, good money to be a chemical mixer. So I was making these huge 20,000 litre vats of various types of glue, working with dangerous chemicals. One chemical that stands out was ammonia. You'd work with ammonia. That's what they make tear gas from.
Yep.
And if it was dynamite, this stuff, you'd absolutely clear the building if you spilt this stuff. And again, there was no safety. There was no masks. We just had a fan. We just had a fan blowing this way, blowing all the poisonous whatever over that way.
This explains a lot. You've been a glue sniffer for years.
Dude, I've definitely lost a couple of brain cells, that's for sure. I don't know about that. So then from there, I went, and a friend of mine was working at TJM, which is a four-wheel drive accessories company.
I know that one very well.
Yeah, TJM, ARB, well, TJM.
Yeah.
So he was a salesman there, and they needed an installer. And mate, I had no idea how to do it, but I have done most way through my life, I bullshitted my way into it. And I told them I told them I knew how to do it. I said, yeah, I can do that.
Yep.
I can do that. So I was fortunate.
But it's an easy job to do, right? It's just like putting Lego together, yeah?
It is. Well, look, it is. And I'm fortunate that I'm a handy sort of a person, and I always have been. I've always been very mechanical and pulling motorbikes apart, pulling cars apart. I got the basic idea. And I always say that my basic approach to mechanics is if the part doesn't fit, it doesn't go there. If the part fits, bolt it up. And it's as easy as that. And that's got me through my mechanical life. So nice. I was at TJM at Auburn, installing bull bars, putting in suspension, putting on canopies. I done that for 12 months, but the pay was terrible. And in the end, I had an argument with the guy. It was straight after a big four-wheel drive show at, I Homebush there, and we had to stay back, and we weren't getting paid for it. And I arced up. I said, "Mate, I'm not staying back doing this and not getting paid for it." He said, "Well, if you don't like it, you can find another job." I said, "Well, mate, stick it in your ass."
Yep.
I left that, and then I was out of work, and I've fallen back onto my truck driving
Yep.
license, and I was going through an employment agency, and they kept bugging me to go and work at Tooheys at Auburn. Tooheys, where they make all the beer.
Yeah.
It's a huge brewery. It's the brewery. It's the main brewery in all of Australia. There's Tooheys in Auburn, and there's Castlemaine up in Queensland.
I can see a pattern here. You've gone from glue sniffing to alcohol sniffing.
Well, I know. Well, I know. So I after them pestering me to go and work at Tooheys, because I thought I don't want to work there and cart beer around and have to carry cartons of beer and whatever else. So finally I gave in because I had no money.
Yeah.
And I worked there for nearly 14, 15 years. It was a fantastic job working at the brewery, mate. And again, I was the transition from the old school to the new school. You would get there at 6 o'clock in the morning. You could have your first beer at 6:05. It was it was crazy like that. It was crazy like that. So I was a delivery driver. And look, please, I just must say that this doesn't happen anymore, okay?
A lot of people have been asking about which brand of battery tool to buy, and I don't like to recommend one brand of battery for everyone or every situation. Dealer support and access to parts and service all play a big role in that decision. Some brands have better tools for specific needs or each product category. I've been using a variety of brands, and I endeavour to provide unbiased interviews on Aussie Lawn Stars with as many of those product brands as possible. I reached out to Ego Power Plus through the podcast because of how Barry supports the industry and Ego owners. Barry has impressed me with his loyalty to customers in providing support and listening to the needs of the industry, which has resulted in a full lineup of new commercial tools landing in Australia over the last 12 months that has positioned Ego as a leader in the commercial tool space for outdoor power equipment. Visit egopowerplus.com.au to see if they have the tools you need today.
But
It shouldn't happen, but obviously we're talking at a time where it was acceptable.
yeah, it was crazy, and when you think about it now, it's mate, I don't know how I didn't die 10 times or I didn't have an accident, but so I was a delivery driver, and I'm going from pub to pub, and it was very common for, once I delivered my kegs or my cartons of beer, for them to walk out and give me a beer, as you know. And mate, you do 12 deliveries, you have 12 beers during the day. It was crazy. It was crazy like that. And then I'm driving a 12-ton truck. It's
that's not laughing now. I'm 12-ton truck with 12 beers in you.
Oh no, absolutely, Gary. And look, I agree with you. And I, at the end of it, I look, for the first year, when it was a bit of a novelty, I thought, like, how good's this? But then I sort of thought, I can't do this, bloody hell. So I just get a Coke, and just be happy with a Coke. But there was the old school who guys would come home, back to base, come back to the brewery, and they were shit-faced every day. Shit-faced. There used to be a forklift driver there now, right? And he actually transferred up to Newcastle, so he's up in your area. And he had one glass eye, right? He was a raging alcoholic. He would be in the corner drinking hot beer that had spilt or something. And if you got on his glass eye side on the forklift, he'd just drive straight over you. And he'd be on there like having a smoke. But it was back in the day where you could do that stuff, It was crazy. So so then I went from Tooheys. So Tooheys, when I was there, was ran by Toll Transport. And then Linfox took it over. And I upgraded from doing the beer deliveries around Sydney Metro, to then I was driving the trailers there, and I was doing Sydney Wyong twice a day. Sparks Road up at
Yeah.
your joint there. So
I know Sparks Road very well.
you would know of the big Woolworths distribution
Yep.
centre up there as well. Well, I was doing from Lidcombe, Auburn. I was doing twice a day there.
Up to Sparks Road. Yep.
Yeah, and I done that for 7 years.
When I moved to this area, and people who listen for a long time will know I live in Cooranbong, but I work Central Coast. So I'm work back and forth up and down that freeway and past Sparks Road every day. All right. When I moved here, I was 5 years old. So you would have been probably 9 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
And we used to jump on our push bikes, and they were building the M1 or the freeway, as we call it.
Yeah.
So when they concreted the M1 through to Cooranbong, we used to be able to ride from my street up around the corner onto the freeway and could ride push bike all the way down to Gosford. Like you get off at the Arimba exit. That's where the freeway had made its way through to at that stage.
Yeah,
So I still remember when they opened the old Mooney Bridge.
Yeah, it was crazy. Look, I was a kid in the back of Dad's car going through the toll booths there at Brooklyn. It was crazy when you think about those days. And Mooney Bridge wasn't that amazing when they, like, you sort of look back at old photos now. It was a feat of engineering to make Mooney Bridge.
Yeah, you used to do the toll booth coming out of Hornsby through that area going down into Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And then you'd be on the old Pacific Highway.
Yeah. And it was like I've been going to Nelson's Bay for 35 years, and to get there, it was a 3 hour, 4 hour trip because you had to go through you're going through Swansea, had to go through all these back roads, all of the old highway. It was a crazy trip where now I still go to Nelson's Bay now, and it takes me 2 hours from my doorstep at Blacktown to the doorstep at Nelson's Bay is 2 hours.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's crazy, mate. It takes me an hour to get to my working area every day, and that's in Sydney Metro. It's crazy.
Yeah. I am so glad I don't live in Sydney.
Oh, look, you know what? I have a love-hate relationship with Sydney. You know what? It's good here because there's so much opportunity here. There's so much work here. It's bad here because it's the rat race.
That amount of work brings that amount of people.
Oh yeah, I know. That's exactly right. It does. Yeah. It's I'm fortunate that I'm in the old part of Blacktown, and I don't deal with the Windsor Road and going through all these new housing estates. Mate, that's absolute chaos. It can take you an hour to do a 15-minute journey because there's no infrastructure. There's all of these roads, all these housing estates around Kellyville and out that way. There's one way in and one way out. And there's 2 billion houses out there, and every house has got 2 cars, and there's like no infrastructure. It's crazy. I couldn't imagine doing that every day. And as I say, I'm fortunate that I'm in the old part of Blacktown and I can get to every motorway without a problem in 10 minutes. So,
So we'll go back to where you were travelling back and forward up to Sparks Road and back every day, and you were doing this in the truck.
Oh yeah. I was taking beer up. Yeah. So that was in the trailer. I was doing 22 pallets every load.
So was this the point where you started thinking, geez, I could go back to working for myself again?
Oh, look, you know what? Yes, it was. It was because I had a lot of time to think, and it was a very good job. And that's the only reason I stayed doing that. But I always knew that I could work for myself and I could make it happen because I'm just that sort of person that can just make it happen.
Yeah.
And so I actually lost the job going to Sparks Road twice a day because that went to the night shift. the
Yeah.
Woolworths distribution centre up there changed their receiving from day to night. And they asked me if I
Much
wanted
more
to work
efficient
night.
transport in the night.
Oh, look, it was. There was no traffic. It was
Yeah.
better for them up there. It didn't suit me, though. Like, I'm not a night
Yeah.
person.
Fair enough.
And look, I am a night person, but I'm not a night person at work, that's for sure.
That's a different kind of night person, Greg.
That's a different kind of. I'm in the dungeon in the night time. Don't worry about that. So they asked me to do it at night, and I didn't want to do it. So I actually got transferred within the company to then I was working at the big Woolworths distribution centre out at Erskine Park,
Yep.
which delivered to all the Metro Woolworths. So I was the guy in the trailer, backing the trailer up to the dock at all the Woolworths. And that was a very good job as well, you know. That was in the end, I left a job that people in driving trucks dream about. I was very well paid. I was driving brand new trucks and trailers, and it was metro work. Like these guys who are banging up and down the highway doing Sydney, Melbourne, Sydney, Queensland, man, they weren't making any more money than what I was making. I was making as much as what they were, and I got to have a shower every night. And you know, it was so I left a very good job. I left because I just had enough. I'd just done it for 20 years, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, when you do something for that long, it doesn't matter what the money's like. You just want to change. And I thought, well, if I don't make a change now, I was 45. If I don't make a change now, it's going to be too late. And pardon me, and I'll be too old. So I was 45 then. I was very fit at the time. I'm a mere shadow of myself. I was very fit quickly, and like don't judge me on this, all right? But I was a cyclist. I was a hardcore cyclist for many years, and that's because quickly I gave up smoking, right? I gave up smoking. I haven't had a smoke for 15 years now.
Well done.
And at the end, I was on two packets a day.
Yeah, that's not affordable.
I loved it, but I loved it, mate. I could still have a smoke now. They say once you're a smoker, you're always a smoker. You just control it, you know.
Yep.
So, and a packet when I gave up was $14 each. So it was costing me $30 a day. I think they're like $50 a packet now. It's crazy to what
Somewhere
they
up
were.
there, yeah. I've never smoked a day in my life. Never put one in my mouth, right? But
dude,
my ex-wife used to smoke, and I know
you're not missing nothing.
when it hit $10 a packet, she's like, "I'm going to give up." But you know,
yeah, I know. Well, in the end, but you're only going to give up if you want to give up. And in the end, after 43 failed give ups, I finally just had enough, and I gave up. But it was so hard for me because I was on 2 packets a day. Being a driver, I just always had a smoke in my mouth, you know.
You need something else in your hand to fiddle with.
Well, mate, I was changing that many gears as well, you know. I was driving the old 18-speed Road Ranger gearbox, which is unheard of now in trucks because they're all automatics.
I was going to say, that's a big change.
I started driving Road Ranger gearboxes doing, you know, with changing 10,000 gears every day to, in the end, when I left, I was driving an automatic Volvo with Bluetooth everything, and it was like driving a car. You just had to turn the steering wheel and push the pedal. It was.
Now, I saw a truck today. I was coming home and coming through Tuggerah, if you know the main intersections through Tuggerah there.
Sort of, yeah.
This truck was moving along in 70-kilometre-an-hour zone, so probably doing 75, and the lights changed to red in front of him, and he decided to stop, and there was a fair bit of smoke coming off his tyres when he was pulling up there, and I'm like,
yeah.
He was either cooking the goose a little bit hard, or that's just expected with a truck that's unloaded, that when you hit the
That's
engines...
right. Yeah, it is, mate. I was just about to say he would have been empty. So those brakes are designed to stop when you've got 20, 30 tonne on the back.
Now,
When you're empty, you're just going to bag them up, and especially if you hit the brakes in an emergency and the arse end's a bit light, they just light it up. There's been many a time that you've just got to break through whatever reason, and there's just this massive cloud of smoke coming in behind you, and you're just at the lights going, "Sorry, everyone."
I'd much rather he be able to stop and I have to put up with a little bit of smoke smell. I was on my motor.
No, look, trucks. It's amazing how well a well mechanically maintained truck can stop, mate. They can stop very well, and they can accelerate very well. I was driving trucks at a 500 horsepower. I'd beat a car off the lights. They were they were crazy compared to the early shitbox truck that I began in. It was chalk and cheese. So
I remember so many current affair shows where they were talking about the old Ford trucks with the dodgy brakes and steering and suspension that were all falling.
That's what I started out in. That's exactly what I started out in. So what I learnt to drive, the truck drivers who are tuned in now will know what one is, an international T-liner. I drove a T-liner, and it had a 9-speed box in it. Mate, it was crazy. You'd get it up to the danger zone was in between 90 and 95, that the front wheels were that much out of balance that the steering wheel would just shake like that, and you just had to get past. You just had to get past 95, and then it would smooth out, and it was okay. But if you weren't holding on with if you weren't holding the steering wheel with two hands, it'd just bounce you out the window. And it was. There was no speedos. There wasn't a day in the old days that all of my tyres had air in them. There was always a flat. It was just blinkers were optional. I'd be driving I'd have my hand out the window doing hand signals in a tipper trailer. So that was that was the good old days.
So moving from there to where you decided to start your own business again, was it at that point did you go through another truck driving job?
No, mate. It was after that. So it was after the Woolworths. So I ended truck driving at that Woolworths depot, and I got my long service. With Lynn Fox. I had worked there, so the long service was for 10 years, but I'd actually been in the company as a casual for 5 years previous. But I got my long service up, and I thought, well, now's my time. Now's my time. And I had to talk to my boss, who was a very good guy. And I told him exactly what I wanted to do. I said, dude, I want to go out and try and start my own business. I don't know what I'm going to do. I didn't instantly plan on being a mowing contractor. I just wanted.
Did you think about returning to plumbing?
No, I was just too long out of the game, Gary. There's so many rules and regulations. I got the basic skills still. I still do all my own work around my house and at friends' places, but I was just too long out of the game to do that. So so I spoke to my boss, and my boss gave me the option. He said, so he was 100% behind me. And so he gave me all my long service. Plus he said, I will hold on to your job for 6 months. Nice. So if it doesn't work out within 6 months, you can come back and you still got your job.
Yeah.
So it was at no risk for me to leave. And so that's exactly what I'd done. And so I was trying to narrow down what I could do and make money and work for myself. And in the end, I was thought being a mowing contractor, and I was good at it too. Like I do all my own gardens at home. I was
Yeah.
always good at hedges. I was sort of already had the skills to do it, and I knew that I could make a go of it from day one.
Yep.
And so I was looking around. I considered a franchise. I didn't want to start out with nothing because it takes too long. As
Yeah.
you probably know, I don't know how you started your business, but it just takes too long to start from nothing.
Yeah.
You've got to
I
weed
bought
out
an
the
independent
bad.
run off someone else, and I found buying an independent run from another person was a good way to get in. And nowadays, after listening to a lot of people interviewing them, I see benefits in either way, going independent or starting as a franchise. But both of those give you a leg up if you start with some customers already.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I wanted to do because as I say, when I started business, I was 45. I had a mortgage. I got a couple of kids. I I could not go a week where I didn't make money. I just had to make money every week just to live.
So you said
So
this was 6 years ago?
sorry.
You said this was
6
about
years
6
ago,
years.
mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
6 years ago. So
Yep.
I just happened to I totally considered a franchise, and
Yeah.
it was just through me looking through eBay and Marketplace that I actually stumbled upon a guy selling a business, and as it turned out, he's 2 blocks over here that I could walk to his house. It was crazy the way it worked out. Do you know
Yeah.
how they talk about destiny and
Yeah.
whatever? Well, it was just crazy the way it worked out, and I still talk to the guy now. And
Yeah.
so
Nice.
he had the business for 15 years,
Yeah.
and his knees were failing on him that he couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And he was selling. So he sold me 40 long-term customers. All these customers had been with him for 10 years or more. So he
Yeah.
sold me 40 long-term customers
Nice.
and $5,000 worth of commercial gear. So the
Okay.
customers were 15, the gear was 5. So it
Yeah.
cost me 20 grand, which was comparable to a franchise at the time. But I really wanted to be independent. So
Yeah.
I went out with him. I spent a week with him, met all the customers, seen all his books,
Yeah.
and it all checked out. So I bought it.
Nice.
Yeah. And
Great.
so the thing with him is that all of his customers were very good, but they were all way underpriced. Way underpriced. I don't know how he lived. They're all like they're all the good old fashion size blocks, but he was doing them for like $45, $50. And I think in
Yeah.
my first year, in my first year, I think I made $35,000 working like an absolute donkey. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
was
that those prices are certainly reflective of probably 15, 20 years ago, not 6 years ago.
I couldn't believe it. But at the time when I bought the business, I had no idea. I didn't know that they were underpriced or overpriced.
Yeah.
I was just working out if I could pay my mortgage every week on the base amount,
Yeah.
and as it turned out, I could, and I knew that over the time that I could build it up, or I could change things, or I could do whatever. So I
Yeah.
knew it was a good opportunity with good long term customers that I could make something happen,
Yep.
and so that's how I started out. I bought the business.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.